an original narrative, created especially for Shadows of Love. Blood stained Elena Moretti's trembling fingers as she pressed against the bullet wound in her side, her vision blurring as she stumbled through the rain-slicked alleyway. The shadowy figures pursuing her were closing in, their footsteps echoing like death knells against wet concrete. Just as her legs gave way, strong arms caught her fall. Not the gentle embrace of a savior, but the calculated grip of Damian Rinaldi, whose cold eyes assessed her value, even as he shielded her from gunfire. The notorious Mafia boss hadn't planned on rescuing an investigative journalist, especially one who'd been digging into businesses connected to his empire. Yet something in her defiant gaze as consciousness slipped away stirred something forgotten within him. A dangerous complication for a man who'd survived by burying his humanity beneath layers of ruthless pragmatism. Elena Moretti's fingers flew across her keyboard, the blue light of her laptop screen illuminating her determined face in the darkness of her apartment. 3 months of investigating Vitalis pharmaceuticals had led to this moment. Evidence of illegal drug trials resulting in multiple deaths, all covered up with falsified documents and bribed officials. "Got you," she whispered, downloading the final incriminating files from her source inside the company. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Miss Moretti." The voice was male, clinical. "I'd strongly advise you to stop what you're doing." Elena's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. "Who is this?" "Someone concerned about your well-being. The story you're pursuing isn't worth your life." "Threats won't stop me," she replied, ending the call and immediately backing up her files to multiple secure locations. This wasn't her first rodeo with intimidation tactics, but something about the caller's tone sent ice through her veins. 20 minutes later, Elena slipped out of her building's side entrance. The evening air was cool against her face as she scanned the street before heading toward her editor's office. The expose would run tomorrow, with or without additional threats. She didn't notice the black sedan until it was almost alongside her, the window lowered silently. Elena's journalistic instincts screamed danger. She bolted down the nearest alleyway, her footsteps echoing against brick walls. A sharp crack split the air. Burning pain exploded in her side. The impact threw her forward, her palms scraping against rough pavement as she fell. She pressed her hand against the wound, feeling warm blood seeping through her fingers. Not like this, she thought. Not before the story breaks. Footsteps approached, deliberate, unhurried. Elena dragged herself behind a dumpster, biting her lip to keep from crying out. Her phone was in her pocket, but her trembling fingers couldn't grip it properly. "Find her," a voice ordered. "Make sure it's done properly this time." Through waves of pain, Elena forced herself to move, crawling further into the labyrinth of back alleys. Each movement sent fresh agony through her body. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. She had to stay conscious, had to reach someone who could help. But as blood continued to soak through her clothes and the footsteps grew closer, Elena realized with terrifying clarity that she might not survive to see her story published. The truth she'd fought so hard to uncover might die with her in this dirty alleyway, with only her killers as witnesses. Damian Rinaldi was concluding business in his car when gunshots echoed from a nearby alley. Normally, such sounds wouldn't concern him. Violence was common currency in his world, but tonight something pulled his attention. "Stop the car," he ordered his driver Marco. "Boss, we're expected at," I said. "Stop." His tone left no room for argument. The sleek black Bentley pulled to the curb. Damian adjusted his immaculate suit jacket, concealing the handgun holstered beneath. At 38, he'd built his empire through calculated decisions, not impulsive detours. Yet here he was, stepping into the rain-slicked darkness of an alley that wasn't his concern. 5 minutes, he told Marco. Then we continue. He moved silently, years of survival instincts guiding him. Voices ahead. Professional hitters from their methodical search pattern, and something else. Labored breathing. The sound of someone fighting to stay alive. Damian spotted her first. A woman crumpled against a wall, hand pressed to her bleeding side. Even in the dim light, he recognized the determination in her eyes. She wasn't giving up. Then he recognized her face. Elena Moretti. the journalist whose investigations had been causing problems for several business associates. The one whose name had come up in his security briefing just yesterday. One of the gunmen was approaching her position. Damian made his decision in an instant. The first man went down silently. Damian's arm locked around his throat until consciousness faded. The second turned at the sound of movement, but too late. Damian's silenced weapon ended any threat with clinical efficiency. Elena's eyes widened as he approached. Even wounded, she attempted to back away. "Stay still," Damian commanded, kneeling beside her. "You've lost blood." "You're Damian Rinaldi," she whispered, recognition and fear mingling in her voice. "And you're the journalist who's about to bleed out in an alley." He assessed her wound serious, but survivable, with immediate treatment. "Your choice, Miss Moretti. Die here or come with me." Her laugh was weak, tinged with delirium. Both options seem equally dangerous. Damian almost smiled. Courage even now, perhaps, but only one gives you a chance. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had reported the gunshots. "Why would you help me?" Elena asked. Her voice fading as consciousness began to slip. Damian lifted her effortlessly, noting how her body tensed then relaxed against him as pain overwhelmed her resistance. "I haven't decided if I am helping you," he replied honestly. He carried her to his waiting car. Marco's surprise evident, but unvoiced as he opened the door. "The Mountain House," Damian ordered, "and call Dr. Vega." As they drove away, Damian studied the unconscious woman beside him. Her investigation threatened people connected to his interests. Logic dictated he should have left her there, or finished what her attackers had started. Instead, her blood was staining his custom-tailored suit, and he was taking her to his most private sanctuary, an impulsive decision that defied his own ruthless pragmatism, one that would irrevocably change both their lives. Elena awoke to the scent of pine and the soft crackle of a fireplace. For a moment, disorientation clouded her mind before memory rushed back. The shooting, the alley, and the infamous Damian Rinaldi appearing like a dark angel. She tried to sit up, gasping as pain lanced through her side. Looking down, she saw fresh bandages wrapped professionally around her torso. Her clothes had been replaced with an oversized button-down shirt. The doctor advised against movement for at least another day. The deep voice came from the doorway. Damian Rinaldi stood there, no longer in a blood-stained suit, but casual black clothing that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. In his hand was a glass of water. "Where am I?" Elena demanded, her voice raspy. "Somewhere safe." He approached, offering the water, "and somewhere very private. My mountain retreat." Elena accepted the glass cautiously, their fingers brushing momentarily. "Why am I here instead of a hospital?" "The men who shot you work for Vitalis Pharmaceuticals. Hospitals require reports for gunshot wounds, and Vitalis has people throughout the medical system." Damian moved to the window, looking out at the pine forest surrounding the property. "You'd be dead within hours, and I'm safer with you." Elena couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. "Everyone knows what you are." His expression remained impassive. "What I am is the reason you're alive. The doctor who treated you works exclusively for me. No records, no questions." Elena tried to process this information. The notorious Damian Rinaldi, whose criminal empire stretched across multiple industries, had saved her life. It made no sense. "My investigation," she said suddenly. "My laptop is secure along with your phone. Both currently useless without signal, I'm afraid." He gestured to the mountainous landscape outside. "We're quite isolated here." The implication was clear. She was completely in his power. "Am I your prisoner?" Damian's mouth curved slightly. "Let's call you my guest. At least until you're strong enough to leave without bleeding to death. And then?" He approached, studying her with unsettling intensity. "That depends on several factors, including what exactly you discovered about Vitalis." Understanding dawned. "You have connections to them." "I have connections to many things, Miss Moretti, some of which you've been investigating with remarkable persistence." Elena's journalistic instincts overrode her fear. "Then why save me? Why not let them finish the job?" Damian was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps I was curious about the woman, brave enough to pursue truths that get others killed." He moved toward the door. "Rest. talk more when you're stronger. There's a security system throughout the house, and my men patrol the grounds. For your safety, and to ensure you don't wander. You mean escape? Damian paused at the doorway. From what? The people trying to kill you, or me, who saved you. Either way, the result would be the same. Out there, alone, you wouldn't survive the night. The door closed behind him, leaving Elena alone with the realization that her savior might ultimately prove more dangerous than her would-be killers. 3 days passed in a strange limbo of recovery and confinement. Elena's strength returned gradually, allowing her to explore the luxurious mountain house that had become both sanctuary and prison. The property was a study in contradictions. Warm wooden architecture, filled with cold, minimalist furnishings. Expansive windows showcased breathtaking views of rugged wilderness, yet reinforced glass and visible security measures emphasized its fortress-like isolation. Like its owner, Elena thought, she was examining the bookshelves in Damian's study, surprised by volumes of philosophy and classic literature among expected tomes on strategy and power, when his voice came from behind her. Finding anything interesting, Elena turned, wincing slightly at the pull in her healing wound. Just trying to understand my captor through his reading habits. Host, Damian corrected, moving into the room. And what have you concluded? That you're more complex than your reputation suggests. She replaced a volume of Machiavelli, though this seems on brand. A ghost of amusement crossed his features. We should discuss the parameters of your stay. You mean my imprisonment? I mean your survival. His tone hardened. The men who tried to kill you work for Victor Castillo, CEO of Vitalis, and a man with unlimited resources. Your story threatened to expose operations worth billions. Elena's journalistic focus sharpened. So you do have connections to Vitalis. Business interests that occasionally intersect. Nothing that would benefit from your death, if that's your concern. Damian moved to a desk, retrieving a tablet. Your editor received this yesterday. He handed her the device, displaying an email from her account, one she hadn't sent, explaining she was taking personal leave after a family emergency. You hacked my accounts. Anger flared through her. I kept you alive, Damian countered. Castillo's men are watching your apartment, your office, your friends. They believe you either died in that alley or are hiding. Either way, they'll eventually stop looking. Meanwhile, I stay here as your... Elena left the implication hanging. Damian's expression darkened. As someone under my protection, nothing more. And the price for this protection? Information. Everything you've gathered on Vitalis, their operations, their connections, their vulnerabilities. Elena laughed bitterly. So you can what? Eliminate competition? Take over their illegal operations. In an instant, Damian was before her, close enough that she could feel the controlled power radiating from him. You know nothing about my motivations, Miss Moretti. Nothing about who I am or why I do what I do. I know you're a criminal, she challenged, refusing to back down despite the dangerous energy between them. And you're a journalist who believes truth is absolute. His voice lowered. We both know the world is far more complicated. Something shifted in the atmosphere. Tension transforming into a different kind of awareness. Elena found herself noticing details. The flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the controlled rhythm of his breathing, the faint scent of expensive cologne. The rules are simple, Damian said finally, stepping back. Stay within the property. Don't attempt outside communication. Share what you know about Vitalis. Do these things, and when it's safe, you'll be free to leave. And if I refuse, his gaze was steady, then you'll never truly understand why I saved you that night. A week into her stay, Elena discovered the photograph. She hadn't meant to intrude. Damian had left for the day on business, and she'd been searching for reading material in a rarely used sitting room. When she noticed the single-framed picture, partially hidden behind books on a shelf, a beautiful dark-haired woman smiled at the camera, her arm around a younger Damian, perhaps in his mid-20s, whose expression showed none of the hardness that now defined him. They stood before a small restaurant. Rinaldi's painted on the window behind them. My sister, Sophia. Elena startled at Damian's voice. She hadn't heard him return. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. she said, carefully replacing the photograph. Something in Damian's expression made her pause. Not anger at her intrusion, but a profound sadness quickly concealed. "She's beautiful," Elena offered. "Do you still see each other?" "She died." The words fell like stones. 12 years ago. Elena recognized the significance of the timing. 12 years ago marked the beginning of Damian Rinaldi's rise to power, his transformation from legitimate businessman to feared underworld figure. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Damian moved to the window, looking out the gathering dusk. For a moment, Elena thought he'd say nothing more. But then he spoke, his voice distant. "We owned that restaurant together. Small place, but respected. Our parents started it, and after they died, we kept it going. Sophia was the heart of it. Knew every customer, remembered their children's names, their anniversaries." Elena remained silent, sensing the rarity of this glimpse into his past. Vitalis was expanding their research facilities in our neighborhood. They wanted our property, made offers. When we refused, they worked through city officials, health inspectors, tax auditors, standard pressure tactics. His hands tightened on the windowsill. We fought back legally. Sophia was studying law at night, knew how to file the right paperwork. We were winning. The pieces began connecting in Elena's mind. What happened? Food poisoning, officially. Bitterness edged his words. 26 customers sickened. 3 died. Sophia was one of them. Investigators found contaminated meat, blamed our suppliers, our practices. The restaurant was finished. "But you didn't believe it was an accident," Elena said quietly. Damian turned, his eyes meeting hers. "I found evidence of tampering. Took it to the police. 2 days later, my apartment was ransacked. The evidence gone. The detective handling the case suddenly retired with a generous pension. Case closed. Vitalis silenced the investigation. Victor Castillo silenced it," Damian corrected. "The same man who ordered your death. He was regional director then, before becoming CEO. I traced the entire operation back to him." Understanding dawned on Elena. "So you built your empire to fight back." "I built it to survive, and to gain power, and finally, to position myself where I could dismantle Castillo's world piece by piece." Damian's expression hardened. "Your investigation into their clinical trials threatened to expose connections I've spent years establishing. Is that why you saved me? To protect your revenge plan?" Damian approached slowly, stopping close enough that Elena could see the pain behind his controlled exterior. "I saved you because when I saw you fighting to stay alive in that alley, you reminded me of Sophia. That same determination to expose truth, regardless of consequences." His voice lowered. "And because no one was there to save her when Castillo decided she was expendable." The confession hung between them, a bridge connecting their separate worlds through shared understanding of injustice and loss. "Help me understand what you've uncovered," Damian said finally. "Not for my business interests, but for Sophia. For justice neither of us could find through legitimate means." These clinical trials were conducted in 3 countries with minimal regulatory oversight, Elena explained, spreading documents across the dining table. 37 deaths, officially attributed to pre-existing conditions. But my source provided evidence. They were directly caused by the experimental compound. Damian studied the files with intense focus. 2 weeks of recovery had strengthened Elena physically, but something else had changed too. A gradual shift from hostility to cautious collaboration. Castillo personally approved continuing the trials despite early warning signs, she continued. The drug Neurocept is projected to generate billions if approved. They couldn't afford delays. "Money over lives," Damian murmured. Castillo's consistent philosophy. Elena watched him, still reconciling the ruthless crime lord of reputation with the man before her, one driven by a complex mix of vengeance and twisted justice. "Your own businesses aren't exactly ethical," she pointed out. "The casinos, shipping operations, construction companies. The difference," Damian replied, looking up from the documents, "is that I don't pretend to be saving lives while taking them. Moral relativism from a mafia boss, honesty about what I am." His eyes held hers. "Something your world of supposedly legitimate business often lacks." Thunder rumbled outside as a mountain storm approached. Elena moved to the window. watching lightning illuminate the rugged landscape. She'd come to appreciate the wild beauty surrounding them, even as she recognized its role in her isolation. "I've been thinking about your sister," she said quietly. "About what happened to her." Damian joined her at the window, his presence both intimidating and increasingly familiar. "You've built all this." Elena gestured to the house, implying his larger empire, dedicated years to bringing down Castillo. But what happens afterward? What fills the void when vengeance is complete? The question hung between them as lightning flashed again, momentarily illuminating his features in harsh relief. "I stopped asking that question long ago," he finally answered. Elena turned toward him. "That's the difference between us. I've always believed in what comes after the story breaks. Accountability, change, justice." "Justice," Damian repeated with a bitter smile. "I learned the hard way that justice exists only for those with power to enforce it. Then what separates you from Castillo?" The question struck deeper than she'd intended. Something flared in Damian's eyes. Perhaps, or recognition of a truth he preferred not to face. Before he could answer, the lights flickered and died as thunder crashed directly overhead. The sudden darkness erased the physical space between them, heightening awareness of his proximity. Elena felt his breath against her cheek, the subtle warmth radiating from his body. The darkness seemed to strip away their established roles, captor and captive, criminal and journalist, leaving only man and woman, connected by shared purpose and growing attraction neither had acknowledged. "The storm knocked out the power," Damian said, his voice lower than usual. "The generator should engage momentarily." Neither moved away. In the darkness, I felt the careful boundaries they'd established dissolving, replaced by something far more dangerous than physical imprisonment. "And if it doesn't," she whispered. His hand found hers in the darkness. "Then we navigate the shadows together." The encrypted message arrived 3 weeks into Elena's stay, delivered through channels only Damian's most trusted associates could access. They sat in his study reviewing it, shoulders nearly touching as they leaned toward the computer screen. "This proves the connection," Damian said, highlighting sections of the financial records his source had provided. "Castillo's shell company transferred funds directly to the account of the hitmen who attacked you." Elena studied the transactions with a journalist's trained eye. "And the same account received payments after the food poisoning incident at your restaurant." "The same team," Damian confirmed, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Castillo's personal cleanup crew." Elena's mind raced through implications. "We can use this. With these financial records and my investigation into the clinical trials, we have enough to..." "To what?" Damian interrupted. "Go to the authorities. The same ones Castillo has in his pocket." "Not all law enforcement is corrupt," Elena argued. "There are federal agencies, international courts. While you pursued legal channels, Castillo would eliminate every witness, destroy every piece of evidence, and likely finish what he started with you." Damian's expression darkened. "I didn't keep you alive for you to sacrifice yourself at the altar of proper procedure." The intensity in his voice revealed more than concern for their shared mission. Elena felt the shift between them, the growing connection neither had intended. "Then what's your solution?" she challenged. "More violence, perpetuating the same cycle." Damian stood, pacing the study. "My solution is dismantling Castillo's empire so thoroughly he can never rebuild, taking everything he values before he faces justice. My kind of justice. Revenge won't bring Sofia back." His movement stopped abruptly. For a moment, Elena feared she'd pushed too far. "No," he agreed quietly. "But it will prevent more deaths like hers, like you almost became." Elena rose, approaching him carefully. "Damian, I understand wanting to make him pay, but becoming what you hate isn't the answer." "You still don't understand what I am," he said, though the hardness in his voice had softened. "What I've had to become." "I see more than you think," Elena countered. "I see someone who saved my life when logic dictated otherwise, who built an empire not just for power, but as a shield against people like Castillo." Something vulnerable flashed across his features before he could mask it. Elena realized how close they were standing, close enough to feel the tension radiating between them. to notice the subtle scent of his cologne, to see the conflicted emotions he typically concealed so effectively. "There's something else in these records," she said, returning to the computer to break the charged moment. "These payments to someone inside your organization. Account number ending 4392. Damian's expression changed instantly. He moved to the screen, studying the transactions with growing alarm. "That's Marco's private account," he said, naming his driver and one of his most trusted lieutenants. "These payments began shortly after I brought you here." The implication landed like a physical blow. "Castillo has someone inside your inner circle," Elena whispered. "Someone who knows I'm alive, who knows where we are." Damian's phone rang as if summoned by the revelation. He answered, listened briefly, then ended the call, his expression grim. "Security perimeter has been breached," he said, moving swiftly to a hidden panel in the bookcase that concealed a safe. He removed a handgun, checking it with practiced efficiency. "They found us." Elena felt cold fear wash through her. "How long do we have?" "Minutes," Damian replied, handing her a smaller weapon. "Stay close to me. Our lives depend on it now. This way." Damian led Elena through a hidden passage behind his study's bookcase, the narrow corridor illuminated by emergency lighting. "The tunnel leads to a garage on the property's edge. We keep vehicles there for emergencies." Distant gunfire echoed through the house above them. Damian's security team engaging the intruders. "Your men," Elena began. "Know their job," Damian finished grimly. "Buying us time is part of what I pay them for." The coldness in his voice reminded Elena of who he was, a man accustomed to violence and calculating human life in terms of utility. Yet over these weeks, she'd glimpsed something more beneath that ruthless exterior. They reached a reinforced door. Damian entered a code, then pressed his palm to a biometric scanner. "Wait," Elena said suddenly. "My laptop. The evidence." "Leave it. We have copies of everything important." "Not everything." She met his questioning gaze steadily. "There's a hidden partition with additional files, including recordings of my source inside Vitalis, names, dates, locations of other victims. Evidence that could stop Castillo permanently." Damian studied her face. "You never mentioned these recordings, because I wasn't sure I could trust you completely," Elena admitted. "But now, more gunfire closer now. They were running out of time." "We can't go back," Damian said. "The main house is likely overrun." Elena made a swift decision. "There's another option." She pulled out her phone, the one Damian had kept disconnected from networks. "My editor has a secure drop site. If I can get signal, even briefly, I can upload everything." "Making the evidence public would destroy any advantage we have," Damian argued. "Castillo would immediately go underground, or be arrested when the evidence reaches federal authorities," Elena countered. "This isn't just about your vendetta anymore. People are dying from that drug. More will die if we don't stop it now." Their eyes locked in silent battle. His strategic caution against her moral certainty. "The ridge half a mile east has cell reception," Damian finally said. "But reaching it means exposing ourselves. It's our best chance to end this," Elena insisted. "Not just for revenge, but for justice." Something shifted in Damian's expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition of a conviction that mirrored his own determination. "5 minutes to gather what we need," he decided. "Then we move." They worked quickly, collecting essential evidence and supplies. Elena copied her hidden files to a secure drive, while Damian retrieved weapons and communications equipment. As they prepared to leave through the tunnel, Damian caught Elena's arm. "If we're separated," he said, his voice low and intense, "head north through the forest. There's a cabin 10 miles upriver, unmarked, off any property records. Wait for me there." The instruction carried more than tactical information. It held a promise that whatever happened, he intended to find her again. "I'm not leaving you behind," Elena replied with equal intensity. Damian's hand moved to her face, thumb brushing her cheek in a gesture so gentle, it belied everything she'd believed about him. "Some risks are worth taking," he said quietly. "I'm beginning to understand that now." The moment suspended between them, intimate and charged with unspoken feelings, before reality intruded with the sound of approaching danger. "Let's go," Damian said, drawing his weapon. "Together." They ran through the forest, the mountain terrain both ally and enemy as they navigated toward the ridge. Gunshots echoed behind them. Castillo's men had discovered their escape. Almost there, Damian said, leading Elena up a steep incline. Rain had begun falling, making the ground treacherous underfoot. Elena checked her phone. Still no signal. The ridge is just ahead, Damian assured her, scanning their surroundings with practiced vigilance. We need to. The bullet struck without warning. Damian staggered, clutching his shoulder as blood blossomed through his jacket. Damian! Elena moved to support him, but he pushed her forward. Keep moving, he ordered through gritted teeth. I'll cover you. Not without you, she insisted, helping him behind a cluster of boulders as more shots splintered bark from nearby trees. Damian assessed his wound with clinical detachment, through and through. I'll manage. He checked his weapon. The ridge is 200 yards uphill. You need to make that transmission. Elena knew he was right, but leaving him wounded felt impossible. In these weeks together, something fundamental had changed between them. Enemies becoming reluctant allies, then something neither had anticipated. Take this. Damian pressed a second gun into her hand. I'll create a diversion. When they focus on me, run for the ridge. That's suicide, Elena protested. It's strategy, he corrected, though his eyes held something softer than calculation. Some things are worth the risk. Before she could argue further, he caught her face between his hands and kissed her fierce, desperate, and filled with everything they hadn't said. When he pulled away, his expression was more open than she'd ever seen it. Go, he whispered. Finish what you started. Elena felt tears mingling with raindrops on her face. I'm coming back for you. I know. His smile held a vulnerability that transformed him. I'll be waiting. With a final look, Elena slipped away, moving uphill through the underbrush. Behind her, gunfire erupted as Damian engaged their pursuers. She reached the ridge, breathless and heart-pounding. One bar of signal appeared on her phone. Working frantically, she connected to her editor's secure server, uploading the compressed files of evidence against Vitalis and Castillo. The transmission completed just as shouts approached from below. Elena tucked the phone away, preparing to circle back toward Damian. But as she turned, she found herself facing Marco Damian's trusted driver, now revealed as Castillo's informant. You should have died in that alley, he said, raising his weapon. Elena's journalist's instincts gave way to survival skills, learned from weeks with Damian. She dropped and rolled as Marco fired, coming up with her own gun raised. 2 shots rang out simultaneously in the rain-soaked forest. Damian heard the shots from the ridge and felt his world narrow to a single devastating possibility. Elena. Ignoring the fire in his shoulder, he dispatched the last of his immediate pursuers and moved uphill, following the path Elena had taken. Rain fell harder now, washing blood from his wound down his arm, creating crimson rivulets that disappeared into the sodden earth. He found them near the ridge's edge. Marco face down, a bullet through his chest, and Elena several yards away, clutching her side, where Marco's bullet had grazed her. Elena. Damian was at her side instantly, examining the wound with careful fingers. I'm okay, she assured him, though pain tightened her features. It's just a graze. The evidence. I got it uploaded. Relief flooded through him. Not for the evidence, but for her survival. Can you walk? She nodded, allowing him to help her to her feet. More of Castillo's men will be coming. We need to reach the northern cabin, Damian said, supporting her as they moved into denser forest. It's our only chance now. They traveled in tense silence, both wounded, but pushing forward through sheer determination. The rain provided cover, washing away tracks that might lead their pursuers to them, but also chilling them to the bone as night approached. Hours later, as darkness enveloped the forest, Damian's satellite phone vibrated. The message was brief but significant. The evidence Elena had uploaded was creating shockwaves. Federal authorities had raided Vitalis headquarters. Castillo was being sought for questioning. It's working, he told Elena as they paused to rest beneath a rocky overhang. Your evidence is too public to bury now. She smiled through exhaustion. We did it. You did it, Damian corrected, checking her wound. The bleeding had stopped, but she was pale from pain and exertion. Another message arrived. This one from Damian's second-in-command. Castillo fled headquarters. Sources say he's personally leading the mountain search. He wants both targets eliminated before dawn. Damian's expression hardened. Castillo was coming himself. The man responsible for Sophia's death, for the attempt on Elena's life, for years of suffering, disguised as pharmaceutical progress. "What is it?" Elena asked, reading his face. "Castillo is coming," Damian said simply. "He's desperate now." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "This is what you've waited for, your chance to face him directly." "Yes." Elena studied him in the dim light. "What will you do when you find him?" The question hung between them, the fundamental difference in their worldviews, crystallized in this moment of truth. "What would justice look like to you?" Damian asked, instead of answering. "A trial, public accountability. His victims hearing him sentenced for his crimes." Elena's voice was steady, despite her exhaustion. "Death would be too easy." Damian was silent, weighing 12 years of planned vengeance against the perspective of the woman who had somehow breached walls he'd built around himself. "We need to keep moving," he finally said, helping her stand. "The cabin is still miles away." "You didn't answer my question," Elena noted. Damian met her gaze directly. "Because I haven't decided yet. For the first time in 12 years. I'm questioning what justice truly means." The admission cost him. But as they continued their journey through the darkness, Damian realized something had fundamentally shifted within him. Priorities rearranging themselves around the woman, who now limped beside him, her determination matching his own. Dawn broke over the mountains as Damian and Elena finally reached the cabin. A simple structure nestled against a cliff face, nearly invisible among the surrounding pines. Inside, emergency supplies and basic comforts awaited, including medical equipment Damian immediately used to properly treat their wounds. "We should be safe here temporarily," he said, securing the perimeter. "The property is registered under multiple shell corporations. Even Marco wouldn't have known about it." Elena sank onto a chair, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "What now?" Before Damian could answer, his satellite phone signaled an incoming message. His expression grew grave as he read it. "Castillo has figured out our general direction," he said. "He's deployed teams to search this entire sector. It's only a matter of time." Elena processed this information with remarkable calm. "The evidence is public now. He can't escape prosecution even if he eliminates us, which makes him more dangerous, not less," Damian countered. "He has nothing to lose." They both understood the implications. Castillo would find them eventually in this wilderness. And when he did, he would stop at nothing to silence them permanently. "I need to end this," Damian said quietly, directly, "before he finds us." Elena read his intention immediately. "You're going after him." "It's the only way to ensure your safety. By sacrificing yourself." She stood despite her exhaustion, facing him with fierce determination. "That's not a solution." "It's the logical conclusion to what I started 12 years ago," Damian argued. "Castillo destroyed my family. He nearly took you. This ends today, one way or another." Elena moved closer, her hand finding his. "Listen to me. Your sister wouldn't want you to throw your life away for vengeance. And I..." She hesitated, emotions playing across her face. "I don't want to lose you when I've just found you." The words hung between them. An acknowledgement of the connection that had grown from hostility to something neither had expected to find. Damian's hand tightened around hers. "What are you suggesting?" "We face him together," Elena said. "Not just for revenge, but for justice. Real justice." "How?" Elena's journalistic mind shifted into strategic thinking. "Your satellite phone. Can it record video?" "Yes." "And you have weapons cached here?" Damian nodded, beginning to understand her direction. "Then we don't run," Elena said, her voice gaining strength. "We prepare. We set the terms of engagement. And when Castillo comes, we ensure everything he says, everything he does, is recorded and transmitted to multiple sources." "A trap," Damian said, admiration evident in his voice. "The truth," Elena corrected. "His own words will condemn him more thoroughly than any bullet." For a moment, Damian was silent, weighing 12 years of planned vengeance against this alternative path. "It's risky," he finally said. "Castillo won't come alone. Neither will we," Elena replied. determination replacing exhaustion in her eyes. We have each other now. Something shifted in Damian's expression, the cold calculation of the strategist giving way to something warmer, more human. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face with unexpected tenderness. Together then, he agreed. Against all odds, they began preparations immediately, transforming the cabin into a carefully orchestrated stage for Castillo's final act, not as a murder scene, but as the setting for justice long delayed. The confrontation, when it came, unfolded with a terrible, perfect symmetry. Victor Castillo entered the cabin alone, believing his men had secured the perimeter, unaware they had been systematically neutralized by Damian's elaborate preparations. The pharmaceutical executive's expensive clothing was muddied from the mountain pursuit, but his arrogance remained intact. "Rinaldi," he acknowledged, gun steady in his manicured hand. "You've led me on quite a chase. Where's the journalist?" "Safe," Damian replied, standing unarmed in the cabin's center. "Beyond your reach." Castillo's laugh held no humor. "Nothing is beyond my reach. Your sister learned that lesson. Pity you didn't." "I learned different lessons from Sophia's murder," Damian said, his voice controlled despite the rage those words ignited. "About power, justice, patience. And what good did those lessons do you?" Castillo gestured around the cabin. "You're cornered, wounded, with nowhere left to run." "I'm exactly where I choose to be," Damian countered, "with exactly the company I intended." Confusion flickered across Castillo's face, replaced by shock as Elena emerged from the shadows, her own weapon trained steadily on him. "Victor Castillo," she said, her journalist's voice clear and precise. "Would you care to explain why you ordered the deaths of 37 clinical trial participants to fast-track Neurocept's approval?" Castillo's expression hardened. "You understand nothing about pharmaceutical development. Sacrifices are necessary for progress, like the sacrifice of Sophia Rinaldi," Elena pressed, "or the attempt on my life." "Collateral damage," Castillo dismissed. "Insignificant obstacles removed for the greater good." "And that greater good being your profit margins," Damian said, moving slowly to position himself between Elena and any potential danger. Castillo's attention shifted between them, calculating odds, escape routes. "You won't leave this mountain alive. Neither of you, my men, have been dealt with," Damian interrupted. "It's just us now, as it should have been 12 years ago." Understanding dawned in Castillo's eyes. He was trapped, outmaneuvered. His finger tightened on the trigger. In the split second before he fired, Damian lunged, not toward Castillo, but toward Elena, shielding her as the bullet meant for her struck him instead. His momentum carried them both to the floor. As he returned fire with a concealed weapon, Castillo fell, mortally wounded. "Damian!" Elena cried, seeing blood spreading across his chest. "The transmission," he gasped. "Make sure it's complete." Elena scrambled to the satellite phone, confirming that everything, Castillo's confessions, his threats, the entire confrontation, had been streaming live to federal authorities and her editor's secure server. "It's done," she assured him, returning to press her hands against his wound. "Help is coming. Stay with me." Damian's eyes found hers, pain mingling with something like peace. "Sophia would have liked you," he whispered. "Your stubborn belief in justice." "Don't you dare say goodbye," Elena commanded, tears falling onto their joined hands. "We've only just begun." His bloodied fingers touched her cheek. "From ashes," he murmured, an unfinished thought as his eyes closed. 3 months later, Elena stood at a simple graveside, placing white lilies beside the name, Sophia Rinaldi. Beside her, Damian watched in silence, his arm still in a sling, his recovery slow but steady. "She would be proud," Elena said softly. "Castillo's empire dismantled, Vitalis under new management. The victims' families compensated. Justice your way," Damian acknowledged. "More satisfying than I expected." The media storm had been intense. A pharmaceutical giant exposed, a notorious crime lord revealed as the brother of a murder victim, a journalist who had nearly died pursuing truth. But through careful negotiation and strategic immunity deals, they had emerged, if not unscathed, then at least free. "What now?" Elena asked as they walked away from the cemetery. "Your vendetta is complete. Your empire is being restructured," Damian finished. Legitimate businesses separated from the rest, which will be dismantled over time. Retirement, she suggested with a small smile. Evolution, he corrected, stopping to face her. 12 years living for vengeance is enough. I find myself interested in building something new. With me? Elena asked directly, journalist's instinct for the heart of the story. Damian's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining with familiar certainty. If you'll have a reformed criminal, he replied. The hardness that had defined him, for so long softened, by something neither had expected to find in the other. Not reformed, Elena corrected. Evolving, like me, like us. As they walked together into an uncertain but shared future, both understood that from the ashes of vengeance and pursuit of truth, something unexpected had emerged. A connection forged in danger, tempered by opposing principles, and ultimately strengthened by the recognition that even the most rigid boundaries can transform when confronted with the right catalyst.